Hey guys, today I'm going to be reading William Shakespeare chapter 5, which is part 3 of the series. And I'm actually very sorry to tell you, but I actually forgot to tell you who the author is. So let me tell it real quick. It's Carol Dommermuff Costa. This is his name right here. And now let's get on to the book. So this is our picture from last time, which is Shakespeare on his knees at left, was a gifted playwright and also a popular actor. Alright, so let's get into the story right now. Chapter 5, The Lord's Chamberlain's Men. And then the justice in fair round belly, with good capon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. A Midsummer Night's Dream, a comic satire, may have been written for a particular noble person's wedding, but experts don't know this for sure. The play is set in Athens, Greece, and revolves around the misunderstandings that take place in the relationships among three couples and in the relationships with other characters. The play soon became a great favorite in playhouses around London. It led to the establishment of a few new group of actors called the Lord Chamberlain's Company or the Lord Chamberlain's Men. Shakespeare was a member of this troupe. Most acting companies in Shakespeare's era took their names from an important person of the royal drawing court members to the theaters who also protected actors from local authorities, who sometimes tried to close down the playhouses. The troupe's namesake also brought parties of people to the theater, which ensured a lively audience. Lord Chamberlain was Henry Carey, First Lord Hunsdon. Almost every royal English court had chamberlains. They were high-ranking members of the court and advisors to the king or queen. The leading members of Lord Chamberlain's men were Richard and Cuthbert Burbage, sons of James Burbage, the actor who built the theater, William Kemp. My God, there's a lot of people named William. William Kemp, a comedian, and Will Shakespeare, actor and playwright. The acting company was extremely successful, but it had stiff competition from another acting company called the Admiral's Men. In 1594, the Lord's Chamberlain's Men presented two of Shakespeare's plays, A Midsummer Night's Dream and Love Labour's Lost, at Queen Elizabeth's court. Most productions received an enthusiastic response. With its newly won success, the acting company played not only in public playhouses and at court, but also toured and played at various inns in and around London. By the end of 1594, Shakespeare had written Henry VI, which is VI, all three parts, Richard III, which is III, Titus Andronicus, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, The Taming of the Shrew, The Comedy of Errors, and Love's Labour's Lost, which apparently is a very popular one. By the way, here is a picture of Richard Burbage became a well-known actor because of his talented performances in tragedy. By August 1596, 32-year-old William Shakespeare had become a prosperous, established writer. His career as both actor and author was a major success. His popular plays were being performed, and his poems were selling very well. Shakespeare thought of going into semi-retirement. By modern standards, a man in his 30s is still considered young. In the 16th century, however, when most people did not live past the age of 55, a man of Shakespeare's age was perceived as well past his prime. As Shakespeare was pondering his future, tragedy struck. His 11-year-old son, Hamlet, perished. The circumstances of Hamlet's death are unknown, but Shakespeare must have felt enormous grief. At least one scholar thinks that Shakespeare expressed the pain of losing a child in his play King John. In Act 3, which is I, Constance is grief-stricken over the death of her child Arthur, Duke of Bretagne, or Duke of Bretagne, and nephew of King John. The next spring, in 1597, Shakespeare decided to return home to Stratford-upon-Avon. Reunited with his wife and daughters, he purchased a new place on the corner of Chapel Street and Chapel Lane, the second largest house in town. The house, with 3 stories and 5 gables, had a small front court built by Sir Hugh Clopton in the latter part of the 15th century. The property had 2 barns, 2 greenhouses, and several small gardens that ran down to the river. The house was large and roomy, with fireplaces in almost every room. Shakespeare lost no time settling in, and his 2 daughters, 14-year-old Susanna, 12-year-old Judith, into the house. While his family enjoyed their new home, Shakespeare went back to work writing more plays. He completed The Merchant of Venice, The Merry Wives of Windsor, and Much Ado About Nothing. At the end of 1598, Shakespeare returned to London and found that his acting company had no place to perform. That was a mood, by the way. The landowner, Giles Allen, refused to renew the lease. Allen even laid claim to the bricks and timbers James Burbage had used to build the theatre. Frustrated and without a playhouse, the Chamberlain's men decided to build another theatre. In December 1598, they found a plot of land across the River Thames in Southwark and secured a 31-year lease. 7 of the Chamberlain's men, including Shakespeare, bought shares in the theatre. They would never again be homeless. The Chamberlain's men performed for Queen Elizabeth on Christmas Day. 3 days later, 6 actors from the Chamberlain's men, a group of workmen, and the master carpenter stormed the theatre. They removed most of the bricks and timbers and ferried them across the river to Southwark, the site for their new playhouse. Oh, this is a picture of Queen Elizabeth I. Elizabeth I was Queen during much of Shakespeare's life. Her hand rests on a globe, left symbolizing her role in making England a world power. Work on the theater, which would hold an audience of 3,000 people, began almost immediately. The troupe chose a name for their playhouse, the Globe. That reflected their belief that all the world's a stage, a phrase later used in Act 2, which is I, of Shakespeare's As You Like It. The design of the globe was similar to James Burbage Theatre, but included certain additions. Shakespeare and his troupe knew from experience what amenities they wanted in a theatre. They laid out plans for the builder to include wardrobe rooms, pulleys in the roof, and trapdoors for setting up and removing props. Actors entered and left the stage through two doors at the back of the stage. Behind the doors were tiring dressing rooms. A silk flag flew from a turret on the roof when the play was ready to be performed. A trumpeter sounded the signal for the townspeople to rush to the theater. The third trumpet blow meant that the play was starting. No curtain hid the stage. The stage jutted out and was surrounded on three sides by the audience. Here's a picture of the Globe stage. This is when it was built, like most English theaters of the time. So the stage jutted out and could be seen by the audience on all three sides. It looks very big. Okay. Wow, I can't even tell if that's drawing. There's a picture below this. It kind of looks like a drawing. I think it might be a picture. Very old picture. From the 1500s to be exact. Oh, never mind. Never mind. It says here it's not. Yeah, there was no photo pictures back then. What am I talking about? Okay. Oh, I see. It's one of its plays. Okay, so well, as I was saying, they stood or sat on benches to watch the play. The audience had no playbills, no explanations of what the play was about, who the characters were, or where the play was set. Wait, what? Such information was learned from lines spoken between the characters, or it was learned from asides when the characters were thinking out loud and revealing plans to the audience. Communication between the actors and their audience was direct. And the picture I was talking about says Julius Caesar became one of Shakespeare's most popular history plays. Here, a modern theatre company performs the play at Stratford Festival in Stratford, Ontario. Yeah, no, that's totally newer. Ooh, that's a very dark rule. Okay, so this little caption, without a picture this time, says no woman on stage. Women were forbidden to act on the English stage. Forbidden? Okay. Acting companies used young boys whose voices had not yet changed to play the parts of women. My god! The boys often had no choice in the matter and were sometimes sold to the acting company by families who needed money. That's ridiculous. These boys were professionally coached by the senior members of the acting company and often became excellent actors and singers. Many of them continued their acting careers well into their adult years. This practice of using male children as actors was a serious bone of contention with the religious factions in London. who considered it scandalous that young boys would be forced to cross-dress as women. It's lots of abuse. One of the first plays performed in New Globe was Julius Caesar. Shakespeare tried to have the play written for the opening of the Globe. He didn't make his deadline, but the play was performed soon afterward to a full house. Julius Caesar, partly based on the lives of the noble Grecians and Romans by the ancient Greek biographer Plutarch, portrays the famous Roman general and his political battles and rivals. The play asks the question, what happens to a ruler whose appetite for power is never satisfied? Although a reader would assume from the title of the play that Julius Caesar is the lead character, he is not. Brutus, a Roman general and Caesar's best friend, is the central character. Brutus thinks Caesar has overstepped his bounds and become a danger to Rome's best interests. Cassius is the plotter who convinces Brutus to kill Caesar for the good of the country. The plotters attack Caesar while he is in the Roman Senate. Brutus defends the act to a crowd of Roman citizens, but then lets Mark Antony, one of Caesar's loyal supporters, deliver an eloquent funeral speech. Standing over Caesar's body, Mark Antony declares, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. He then goes on sarcastically to describe Brutus and the other plotters as honorable men. He praises Caesar's virtues, shows his fatal wounds, and turns the crowd into an angry mob that wants to kill the plotters who flee Rome in fear of their lives. Mark Antony leads an army that defeats the forces of Brutus, Cassius, and the other plotters. Brutus commits suicide at the end of the battle. Standing over Brutus's perished body, Mark Antony states, this was the noblest Roman of them all. He explains that the other plotters killed Caesar because of envy of his power, and only thought the general Brutus acted with honest thought and common good to all. Julius Caesar, like all the plays at the Globe, took place in daylight without the benefit of scenery. And illusions had to be created by the playwright and the actors. Only words and gestures kindled in the imagination. When Shakespeare wanted moonlight in The Merchant of Venice, he had to evoke each scene through words. For example, Lorenzo tells Jessica, how sweet the moonlight sleeps upon this bank. Here we will sit and let the sounds of music creep in our ears. Okay. Soft stillness and the night become the touches of sweet harmony. Sit, Jessica. Look at how the floor of heaven is thick, inlaid with pantiness of bright gold. Okay. Interesting. The Merchant of Venice, Act V, which is 5. Scene I, which is 1. 54 out of 59. What does that mean? When Shakespeare wanted a grim night sky without stars or moon, as in Macbeth, his characters created the setting. Banquo, how goes the night, boy? Fleance, the moon is down, I have not heard the clock. Banquo, and she goes down at 12. Fleance, I take 'tis later, sir. It's very confusing. Banquo, hold, take my sword, there's husbandry in heaven. Their candles are out. Macbeth. Act 2, Scene 1. 1 to 5. It's very confusing words. Okay. Shakespeare wrote most of his plays for audiences of a broad social background. A range of people from common laborers to members of the nobility came to the globe. But most of the audience consisted of middle-class merchants, craftsmen, and their wives. Audiences of the era were very different from modern audiences. The audience in Shakespeare's time was almost part of the production. Spectators were free to express anger or displeasure at the actions of a villain or to laugh raucously, rac, ra, ra, rac, raucously, 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 or to laugh raucously at the antics of a comic hero. In fact, they were expected to. The reaction of the audience was the barometer that told the acting company how well the play was being received. Actors expressed motives, thoughts, and actions with gestures and exclamations that were easily recognized by audiences. Plays were usually based on familiar stories from history, current events, and classical literature. But Shakespeare shaped this material with such genius that he gave it a new sophistication, enlarged its scope, and charged it with greater significance. Shakespeare's acting career was probably as prolific as his writing career, and acting was much more profitable. He performed on the stage regularly as part of the Lord Chamberlain's men. In All's Well That Ends Well, he played the part of the king. In Hamlet, Shakespeare played the ghost. He played the parts of King Henry in Henry IV, which is 6. Right? I think that's 4? Oh yeah, 4. Suffolk in Henry VI, which is VI. The Lord in the Taming of the Shrew. That's not very nice to it, whatever a shrew is. And King Philip in King John. Wait, what? King Philip is inside of King John? It says King Philip in King John. Is that the name, or is he acting as King Philip? Oh yeah, he's acting as. I thought he was inside of King John. Okay. Well, because he was an actor as well as a playwright, Shakespeare had lots of advance for new actors, which he humorously incorporated into the text of his plays. This is a picture of Hamlet by Shakespeare. He's playing Hamlet, and he's considered by actors to be one of the most difficult theater roles. Sarah Bernard, above, an acclaimed French actor, is dressed for the role. For instance, in Hamlet Act 3, which is scene I, which is 2, Shakespeare berates the overacting that he had often witnessed on stage. He writes, "Oh, there be players that I have seen play and heard others praise, and that highly not to speak it profanely, that neither having the accent of Christmas nor the gait of Christian, pagan nor man, have so strutted and bellowed, that I have thought some of nature's journeymen had made men, and not made them well. They imitated humanity so abominably, abominably, Okay. In September 1601, records show that Shakespeare returned home to Stratford upon Avon to attend his father's funeral. His father's funeral? At this time, Shakespeare also began to make real estate investments. What? With some of the money he had earned through his success on stage. He bought 107 acres in Old Stratford and Bishopton, Bishopton, for the sum of £320, approximately $13,000. $13,000 for 100 acres? 100 acres is 300 feet, and $13,000 for 300 feet? That's crazy. That's crazy expensive. To me, that sounds very expensive. And by November, he was on his way back to London. Some 16th century insults. He got insulted. That's not good. Shakespeare's plays are filled with insults that were common in the 16th century and that can be very comical to a modern reader. Wait, what? Comical? Comical to a modern reader. Show your sheep-biting face and be hanged in an hour. Uh-huh. Okay, measure for measure. Methinks thou art a general offence, and every man should beat thee. All's well that ends well. There's no more faith in thee than in a stewed prune. Henry V. Okay. May the worm of conscience still begnaw thy soul. Oh. The worm of consciousness? What? Yeah. Okay. LeFew and Perolus insults in Shakespeare's All Well That Ends Well. This is a picture of, honestly, I don't know which is which, but, this guy looks like a distinguished pirate, so let me show you the picture. This guy looks like a distinguished pirate with his little mustache. Like a little mustache. Oh, hey! Guys, we made it! We made it to chapter 6. I think, you know what? We're gonna read one more chapter, and then we're gonna get to chapter 7, which is apparently the last chapter. The King's Men, chapter 6. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon. I thought that said Pokemon. Pantaloon with spectacles on nose and pouch on side. His youthful hose well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice, turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. During Shakespeare's time, the city of London was a crammed commercial huddle permeated by the smell of River Thames. The Thames was everybody's thoroughfare. People normally crossed by boat taxi, the boatman calling eastward ho and the westward ho. Gilded barges carried royalty on the waterway. Mr. Waterway. It was not uncommon to see criminals. Criminals? It was not uncommon to see criminals? My God. It was not uncommon to see criminals chained to the banks. Okay. London streets were narrow, cobbled, and slippery with slime of refuse. Slime of refuse? Oh. Wait, is that supposed to be vomit? Oh, okay. I'm not sure. I think it might be. Houses were crammed together with narrow alleys. Chamber pots holding human waste, oh my, what? Were emptied out of the windows. I kind of regret reading this chapter, my god. There was no drainage. Oh, okay. But the city had its natural cleansers. Natural. The kites. How does that clean? The kites, graceful, resourceful birds. What? Kites aren't birds. The kites, graceful, resourceful birds that made their nests of rags and refused in the forks of trees? Excuse me? This guy's very confusing. Okay. They scavenged, eating everything with relish. Okay. And the smells of the countryside floated in rosy milkmaids in the early morning streets and cellars of newly gathered vegetables. London was a city of loud noises. The hooves and coach wheels on the cobbles, the yells of traders, the brawling of apprentices. Even normal conversation must have been loud since everybody was, by our standards, tipsy. Nobody drank water, and tea was not yet available. Ale was the standard tipple. And it was that I love that word. Tipple. And it was strong. Strong. Ale for breakfast started the day. Okay. Ale. Ale for dinner and supper ended the day. Okay. Can we not end the day with Can we not have a whole day with ale? Beer? Yeah, that can be bad for you. Okay. Ale was the standard tipple, and it was strong. Ale for breakfast. Ale. Why do I keep saying ale? Ale for breakfast started the day. Ale for dinner and supper ended the day. The better sort drank wine. It was not a sober city. Sober city. In March 1603, Londoners faced a new and difficult situation. Queen Elizabeth became ill. Oh no! And it became obvious to her advisor that she won't live much longer. Because she didn't have any children, there was no direct heir hello, to the throne. The Queen's advisors encouraged her to name her successor before she became too ill. Elizabeth named James VI, which is 6 of Scotland, to become King James I of England shortly before she perished on March 24th, 1603. England was just coping with the death of its queen and adjusting to its new ruler when another virulent plague. Another bubonic plague? Another plague? This is ridiculous. Virulent? What a way to describe this freaking thing. No, another plague? Okay. This virulent plague broke out in London in May 1603. The theaters closed on May 26th. Of course they did. Of course they closed. They always close. And remained so for 11 months. I thought it was going to say 11 years. My God. By the time the plague epidemic ended, wow, they literally said no information about the plague. By the time the plague epidemic ended, more than 30,000 people had perished. It is not known exactly what 39-year-old Shakespeare did during the epidemic. I thought it was going to be experience. Epidemic. He may have returned to Stratford upon Avon. Why does this guy always go to Stratford-upon-Avon? Or his acting company may have gone on tour in other towns. Wow, that's cool. He may have returned to Stratford-upon-Avon again. Or his acting company. Oh, wait, I already read that. The fortune of the Lord Chamberlain's men soon changed dramatically. Dramatic! The new king appointed the company to be the king's men and grooms of the chamber extraordinary. Extraordinary! The players became royal servant. Oh my god. Were infrequent. I thought it was going to say freaky. Frequent demand at court and were heralded as the most important acting company in the country. They performed more often than any other company in England. Since the players had the protection of the king, they were no longer bothered by the religious fanatics and civic authorities bent on closing London theatres. The king's men also received the honor of marching with King James I in royal processions. Resplendent in scarlet robes that indicated their status as sworn officers to the royal household. Shakespeare continued to write plays, although his style changed dramatically after writing Hamlet. All well that ends well, and measure for measure for measure for measure for measure. Yeah, that's it. Man, he likes repeating. All's well for that ends well. Hamlet, Hamlet, and measure for measure. Are you okay? Okay. He began to write with a greater sense of darkness than he had previously displayed. Shakespeare's tragedies, Othello, Macbeth, and King Lear contained a great deal of violence and addressed tragic themes. That's not good. The impetus. I don't know. Tell me in the comments. Impetus for the creation of Macbeth might have stemmed from the assassination attempt on King James I. Are you kidding me? On November 5th, 1605, a man named Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes? Heard of him before. Helped lead a group that tried to they tried to kill the king. They also tried to blow up the king. No, blow up both houses of Paraliament in protest against the government. My god, what is happening over there? It just sounds like a bunch of party animals. My god. Okay, so much publicized political incident, that's a lot of PPPP, incident may have inspired Shakespeare to include the killing of a king as a plot in some plays. To this theme, Shakespeare added the elements of the supernatural and witchcraft and wizardry. No, and witchcraft. Common topics during this period of history. The first scene of Macbeth opens on a moor in Scotland. Macbeth and his friend Banquo are returning home when they find three witches stirring a cauldron. As they pass, Banquo notes that the witches appear so strange, they seem not to be alive. Ah! Okay, so here's a picture of Guy Fawkes. Wow, he has enough hair to look like a fox, that's for sure. So, yeah. I get why his name is Guy Fawkes. Really is a fox. Look at all his hair. Look at everywhere. It's everywhere. I feel like, I think there's hair growing on his eyes at this point. There's growing his there's hair in his ears. My God. Guy Fawkes led an attempt on the life of King James the First. Above. What do you mean above? Where do you see King James? This is Guy Fawkes. Okay, above in November 1605. Macbeth, speak if you can. What are you? What are you? Okay. Macbeth, Act 1, Scene I 3. 39 to 47. Instead of answering Macbeth's questions, the witches began to predict his future by addressing Macbeth with the various titles he will eventually hold. He thinks they are just senile old women. First witch, all hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis! Second witch, all hail Macbeth! Hail to thee, Thane of Cawdor! Third witch, all hail Macbeth! That shalt be the king hereafter! Macbeth. Macbeth, Act 1, Scene 3. Alright, the witches appear again in Act IV, which is 4, Scene I, which is 1, leaning over a cauldron and discussing the fate of Macbeth. Their dialogue is interspersed with a chant. First witch, round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails strew, though there on the skull stone, there's a knight's has 31, sweltered venom sleeping gut, boil thou first I the charred pot. All double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Second witch, fillet of a fenny. Oh no, that's the words. Fillet of a fenny, swamp, snake, in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of a frog, wool of bat and tongue of a dog, either's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's leg and howlets, small owl's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a oh my. Okay, that's not for like a heck. Let me not say the other word. Like a heck broth boil and bubble. Okay, that was very dramatic and violent. Macbeth, Act 4, Scene I, which is 1, 4 to 19. Are these the witches? They look like old witches. The third witch goes on to list the items she is throwing into the boiling pot. Items such as a scale as a dragon and hoof of a wolf. Wow, the scene with the witches is one of the most famous in Shakespeare's plays. This late 16th century was fascinated with the occult and witches in particular. It was well known at the time that King James and I, which was one, obsessed with witchcraft. In fact, he had written a very popular book in 1597 entitled Demonology, which is what it means in English, in which he instructed readers how to find and kill witches. My God, that is dark. Here's a picture of Macbeth and Banquo when they encounter the three witches. This is their laugh. I don't know, that's what I think. That's what I think they sound like. I don't know, this is beginning to be a very long video. Okay, so in the 18th century, almost 1 million people, mostly women, had been unjustly killed in England and Europe merely on the assumption that they were witches. Shakespeare used this cultural preoccupation with the supernatural in his play to elicit a rich emotional reaction in his audience. In May 1607, Shakespeare returned home to Stratford upon Avon to celebrate the marriage of his daughter Susanna to John Hall, a doctor. Shakespeare stayed at a new place for the remainder of the summer, working on Antony and Cleopatra and Pericles. Both plays were completed by the time Shakespeare returned to London in October. The following year, when Susanna gave birth to her daughter Elizabeth, 44-year-old, Shakespeare became a grandfather. A few months later, he lost his mother, who perished in 1608. The following month, the King's men acquired a private playhouse in London called the Blackfriars Theatre. The company used this theatre, which was enclosed and easier to reach, as a winter theatre. He completed Cymbeline, a fresh, enchanting play that mixes sadness, humor, near tragedy, fantasy, and poetry. The story is about a young girl, Imogen, who marries Posthumus for true love. She is harassed. Oh my god. She is harassed by a wicked stepmother, Closen, badly treated by her father, Cymbeline, king of Britain, pursued by a hated brute. Oh my god. Iachimo, falsely accused of unfaithfulness, forced to flee disguised as a boy, befriended by mountaineers who turn out to be her long-lost brothers, and finally returned to her penitent husband. He is melodramatic and it includes battle scenes, a prison scene, ghosts, music, and much moralizing. Approximately 9 months after the death of Shakespeare's mother, publisher Thomas Rope printed a book, Shakespeare's Sonnets, never before unprinted. Leonets, king of Sicily, falsely accuses his wife, Hermione. Wait, what? Harry Potter. Hermione, of having a love affair with the visiting king of Bohemia, Polixensis. The Tempest is a romance partly based on several sources, one of which was an actual sea voyage that took place in May 1609. Sir Thomas Gates and his crew set sail on the ship Sea Adventure for England's first permanent New World colony, Virginia. The ship was lost at sea, and the sailors were shipwrecked on the island near the Bermudas, which was supposedly inhabited by witches and devils. Eventually, the crew cut down trees and built boats to make its way to Virginia. Stories about their experiences reached England in the early autumn of 1610 and may have inspired Shakespeare. Written for the court of King James I, The Tempest was first performed at a court wedding. The play is a fairy tale with a theme of reconciliation. Old grudges are forgiven and the characters begin a new life. This play takes place on an enchanted island ruled by Prospero, a magician. He lives there with his daughter, Miranda, and his slave, the monster Caliban. Caliban creates a tempest or storm which causes a ship carrying his enemies to crash on the island. Miranda immediately falls in love with Prince Ferdinand, who is also on the ship. Through his magic, Prospero brings the couple together, upsets his enemies' plots, and all ends happily. In the play, Shakespeare blends spectacle, song, and dance with a love story, poetry, and comedy to produce a dramatic fantasy. Some contemporary scholars believe this play was that in The final scene of the play, the magician Prospero, the main character, closes his books and lays aside of his magic cloak. Shakespeare may be telling his audience that as author and actor, he will soon retire from active life. Alright, thank you guys for watching. We've reached chapter 7. I think we are going to read this in the next chapter. In the next video. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day. Like and subscribe, please. I want to get to 50 subscribers so we can make the live stream. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Bye.